everybody, welcome to Rock and Roll Shin-Soo, episode number 86, the final episode of 2017. I'm Gabe Estel, here with my co-hosts Dennis Levi Leach and Jonathan Getz. How's it going, guys?
At your service.
Good. All right, well, we're about ready to send 2017 off. Needless to say, it's a years of highs and lows. Lost a lot of great people this year, and a little bit of our democracy in the process as well. But anyway, I'll go ahead. Tonight we're going to recap a little bit of the year, as well as talk a little bit about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which just a couple weeks ago announced its 6 inductees for 2018. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, as well as each of us are just going to share some of the highlights from the year from the world of music, baseball, and maybe a few things, a few other items as well. So on that note, let's go ahead and start off with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is set to take place, the induction ceremony in Cleveland this spring. A couple weeks ago, the inductees were announced, I should say. Bon Jovi, The Cars, Dire Straits, Nina Simone, the Moody Blues, and Sister Rosetta Tharpe. So,
are they? Wait, real quick. Are the induction ceremonies actually in Cleveland, or are they in New York?
I'm looking at. It says here that it says Cleveland.
Oh, okay.
On the website, like it's got like right by the logo Cleveland,
okay.
which I like to see. I like that they're in Cleveland. Just because that's where the building is, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not like New York doesn't have enough awards ceremonies.
Yeah.
So it seems like it's good for Cleveland, to have the induction ceremony as well. I like it. Keep it in the Midwest.
Yeah,
all right. So what do you guys make of the inductees as well as the nominees? Now I don't have I can pull them up here. I don't have the list of nominees here. But I can go ahead.
I mean, as far as the inductees, I would say the Cars, Dire Straits, and Moody Blues are them kind of playing catch up again, which is what they did kind of last year with like Yes and Journey.
Yeah, right.
Because those 3 bands, for sure, you would think most people would already think those bands are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
But Sister Rosetta Tharpe, not a ton of people may be familiar with her, but she was influential to early rock and roll music.
Yeah,
heavily.
Mm-hmm.
And out of all of them, Bon Jovi, I wasn't totally sure about. What were your guys' thoughts on that?
I was kind of surprised he wasn't already in. I mean, I could care less about his music, but the dude's sold a ton of records and probably influenced quite a bit of artists.
130 million. That's
yeah.
130
yeah.
million.
Yeah.
130 million. Yeah.
Damn.
And it's hard to think about it, because it's like 2 ways. Do we go off just straight record sales? Do we go off influence,
or
it's
a combination,
or
whether they were
influence?
Yeah, or whether they were like trailblazing. Were they the first minority that broke through in that genre? You know what I mean? Like you kind of think about things like that as well, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly it's good to see. I think more women getting recognized, in the Hall of Fame. So I definitely, like Levi mentioned, playing catch up. I think they're doing it in that regard as well. We've said this before, and I'll say it again. I think all 3 of us have some ambivalence just around the whole Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for some of the reasons that Levi mentioned with the criteria, because the record sales thing are the only one that you can really quantify. Like the Baseball Hall of Fame, for the most part, not entirely, but for the most part, it's stat driven as well as the other sports Hall of Fames. Whereas in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, that's not always the case, right? I mean, you know, the Ramones didn't sell a lot of records, but they were hugely influential. So they're gonna, you know, they got in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and rightfully so. But it's always one of those things that's kind of bothered me a little bit, because it's like, you know, the rebellious spirit of rock and roll. That being said, having a building and having, you know, this whole ceremony and awards, it sort of goes against that rebellious spirit of rock to a certain degree. But that said, I did find the list of nominees, and I'll just read the ones that were nominees but did not get inducted. Mm-hmm. So it's Kate Bush, okay, Depeche Mode, the Eurythmics, Jay Giles Band, Jay Giles, who passed away this year, Judas Priest, Link Wray, LL Cool J, the MC5, the Meters, Radiohead, Rage Against the Machine, Rufus featuring Shaka Khan, and the Zombies. So those were the nominees that did not, you know, become inductees. And I think that Jonathan had mentioned that he thought Radiohead, when we were talking about this, I think just via text a few weeks or whenever the nominees were announced, that Radiohead should have been a first ballot. So I'll ask you now, Jonathan. Not that I disagree with you, because I do agree, but what's your rationale behind that?
Well, it's actually, it has nothing to do with record sales necessarily, though they could certainly lean on that if they wanted to, probably, in terms of, relatively speaking, record sales for the 1990s
we'll get
and
to
2000s.
that in a second, yeah.
But mostly, you know, what they were able to do with rock and take in directions that it hadn't been taken before, and introduce, you know, electronic elements into it. And, you know, they certainly had their influences from the 80s, but then they evolved those influences and manifested itself in this way that influenced untold number of bands, some worthy, some not as worthy. But I think a lot of the bands that I'm into today, sure, that especially if they have an electronic element in them,
yeah, right,
I have really grown to appreciate, where I didn't appreciate that electronic element as much when I was younger. And this is all at the same time, you know, this is a band that has guitars and a bass and drums, and it doesn't really rely that much on the element, but it is a part of it, and it has created this evolution of rock, and that I think is undeniable and makes them probably the most influential band since 1990.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Maybe next to Nirvana, I'd say, as far as, you know, influence goes, as far as the number of people they've probably reached.
Well, that brings up a perfect point. You just said influence and how many people you reach. And to me, with some of the Hall's picks, you can tell they're going strictly almost off of record sales. You know what I mean? To me, because I mean, how many great, awesome bands did Bon Jovi influence? No, right. I mean, Bon Jovi, and I want to preface all this with, I'm not against any of these bands I'm going to talk about or that I've said.
We're just playing the game
or anything. But
it's all purely subjective. Yeah, right.
So I've tried to total it all up, and it's kind of tough because Radiohead doesn't keep track of their newest record download sales and stuff. Right. But it looks like Radiohead has sold between 12 and 14 million records, which is a lot.
Yeah,
one of their contemporaries of the same era, someone that's never mentioned really in any of these talks, and like I said, this isn't someone that I'm into or anything. Dave Matthews Band during that same time sold over 35 million records almost.
Right.
And so when you talk about influence and the product, the music itself, the art has to get to people and it has to be in their hands for someone to be influenced.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's like, well, if Dave Matthews Band had somehow sold 35 million records almost, that's a lot of people that they could have influenced, and which I think they did influence, for better or worse, the whole whole 90s jam band type scene, or the whole the college frat boy and girl going to a Dave Matthews.
They were very
show.
Instrumental in Abercrombie and Fitch really taking off. There.
Right. Well, no.
Right.
And so for better or worse, they influenced twice as many people almost as Radiohead if we're going off record sales.
Right.
And so I just think it comes back to, like you said, we're all kind of ambivalent towards it, to where it's like, it's tough. Do you go off record sales? Do you go off what are perceived, what we think they influenced or who we think they influenced? It's a tough call, but I don't know. I don't know if I think Radiohead will probably get in. I think it might take them another ballot or two.
I think you're right. Yeah.
It didn't help that they said that they weren't interested in being inducted and they wouldn't show up even if they were. So. That's a rock and roll attitude.
Honestly, one that
more power to them. That's rock and roll. Yeah.
Their contemporary that you mentioned that I could see getting in before them is Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
Sure.
To me, Rage Against the Machine in my bubble of my world in the 1990s, they were way more influential to me than Radiohead was.
Sure, but they have more the
buying Evil Empire the day it came out and like studying it and listening to it.
But they have the Gale Sayers, Sandy Koufax short career.
Correct.
I was about to say that.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of output in as far as Rage goes, you know. That's one of the things that
would be one of the ones. Then you're going off of influence or impact, or
because
their cultural impact, alone.
Well, let's put it this way, right? I always, my own kind of like, since the whole criteria is murky anyway. The criteria I've always had in my head when I look at these nominees is, do they have more than one classic record, what I consider a classic record, right? And there's two recent, I don't know, probably last 6-7 years inductees that I really like. And I think they put out, though, just one classic album apiece. So even though I think they were both widely influential and I think really, really, really important, on my own criteria, I don't know if necessarily they get in. And the two acts that I'm talking about are Guns N' Roses and NWA. They both have a classic album, wide, big selling, hugely influential. I don't consider Use Your Illusion necessarily a classic. I like it. I always found it kind of a bloated affair, though. I think it should have been one record. And then NWA, like Ice Cube left, and then they put out an EP and then another LP, but it's only 2 LPs and an EP. One, granted, the first LP is awesome, and I think just not only an important album musically, but also politically as well. But that said, I don't necessarily know if I'd put him in, just because, man, to me, it's like you got to have a little more output.
Sustained greatness.
And a lot of that is just the bands broke up. You know what I mean? Or like they just
people died or whatever.
People died. People left the band. Whatever the case may be. So a lot of it's beyond their control. But in my head, in the Gabe, induction criteria, that's kind of the one I've always said. And then also another band that got in a few years ago, and maybe this is just me being a jerk because I don't like their music. I have yet to hear anything good, any good band say they were influenced by Green Day, in my opinion. And maybe I'm just being an asshole because I don't like Green Day, their music. I mean, maybe they're decent people. I don't know. I think the world could have survived without Sum 41 and Newfound Glory. All right. So I have a hard time. I would have a hard time inducting Green Day, despite, the album sales and the longevity. They've been around for 25 years or so now. It's not to say they're not important, but
I'll always have like a special spot for Dookie just because it reminds me of those times or whatnot. But I can't say that they had sustained high levels of output. by any means.
It's popular, and I do, just because I don't like it doesn't mean it's
correct.
You know, it's just
we're gonna get so much hate mail from so many different artists because of this episode.
They exist in a subgenre that that's never appealed to me, and that I would call it pop punk.
For sure.
Which to me is kind of here and that is just nails on the chalkboard.
You could call it angst pop.
I think that's giving it too much credit, quite frankly.
Right.
I call it Hot Topics background music is what I call it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'm just trying to not use the word punk in it, to not demean the word punk.
Well, I'm glad Dire Straits. I'm just glad Dire Straits made it in.
Right. Yeah.
You were going to go off on the Dead Boys now for about 10 minutes.
I'll say this, the most disheartening snub to me from the nominees list is Iron Maiden. That's one of the that's one of the biggest bands in the world.
And they've sold the records to prove that, for sure.
Well, dude, shit, go down to Rio when they play down there and fill a soccer stadium for 6 shows. You know, I mean, I'm talking like they still do that today.
The only band I know of touring in their own private jumbo jet.
And Bruce can fly the thing too. Yeah. Maiden's the shit. All right, like Maiden needs to get in like stat.
I mean, the ones you mentioned, I could see Judas Priest getting in within the next couple years, maybe.
Yeah.
I definitely think the Meters should be in there, just because then the Meters would be in the group of how many people we influenced, because the Meters never sold tons of records or anything, but the Meters are so influential and have played with so many people.
Yeah,
and I mean, that first Robert Palmer record wouldn't have existed without him.
Oh yeah,
like potentially Little Feat, that whole vibe of the New Orleans loose, funky rock.
Yeah.
Whole thing is them. That's them. That's the Meters.
Well, also, I think one of the purveyors of modern electric guitar, Link Wray, as well. I mean, like when Rumble came out, like nothing like that had ever been done before.
Oh yeah, that's Jimmy Page's favorite song.
Yeah. So I don't know. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is a perplexing institution.
Yeah, because you don't know how. You try to figure out how they're going about it. Are they doing influence? Or are they doing record sales? And it's
a
like
lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. It's hard to pinpoint, because I know a lot of people were upset that the Zombies didn't get in, and it's like, I love the Zombies. I love She's Not There. I love Time of the Season.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure the Zombies belong though in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They were a great band, but like, I'm wondering if you put in, I don't know, and I'm gonna come off sounding rude or cocky or something, but like, there's the upper level acts and mid-level acts and lower mid-level and lower level acts. The Zombies to me aren't like an upper echelon act. You know what I mean?
So they're important, but I mean, it's a lot of the people that are that upper echelon have already been inducted. I mean, so
and so I guess they're down to the what's left, but so some of them just seem so glaringly obvious to me. Like you said, Iron Maiden for sure.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I'll make a case for LL Cool J. I mean, I saw that he was nominated, but that he gets inducted. I mean, like, not a lot of people were really like paying much attention to rap in 1986. And he was there rapping. I mean, I think that you have to consider how early, just sort of the those early pioneers of a genre. I think that's got to be considered, whether you like their music or not. And I certainly think LL Cool J has some classic records. I have to admit, like, I haven't listened to much he's done since, like, he became a television star, basically, or like not haven't post Mama Said Knock You Out. I don't really know any of his songs. But that's not to say, like that early stuff that he did. I mean, it was It was really important.
Oh yeah, for sure. It was.
So
just...
I'd have voted for him. I mean, I would have if I was on the committee. I would have voted for him this year.
Yeah.
So.
Cool.
All righty.
We got to get on that committee.
Just sorry to Green Day.
Group,
man, like I highly doubt Billy Joe listens to this podcast. I'm sorry. So I feel part of me's feeling kind of guilty for saying that now. But anyway, whatever. Never dug them. But that doesn't mean they're not important. All right. Anyway.
Don't apologize.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on, and also I want to remind everybody here in the spring, we will have the chew-ins, which is our version of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Every year, each of us inducts an artist, so I have a lot of fun with those episodes. So we'll be doing that again, probably right around the time of the induction ceremony, which is usually sometime in the spring. So look forward to that. I'm even thinking about who I'm gonna induct. So
already
should be fun. Yeah, I am. Those are one of my favorite episodes to do. Alrighty, I get to make the case for somebody who will probably never be on that nominees list. Anyway, all right. So now we'll go ahead and move on to 2017, kind of sort of our version of a year in review. We're just going to talk about some of the things that stood out to us in 2017, be them music related or baseball or something else as well. So Jonathan, I'll let you go ahead and kick it off. What's one of your takeaways from 2017?
One of my excuse me, sorry. One of mine is, I'll start off with some baseball, and it's actually number 4 on my list. And it was the catch/non-catch. Austin Jackson made a catch for the Cleveland Baseball Club against the Red Sox at Fenway Park, in which he was running toward that awkward pitcher's bullpen short fence near right center field. He leaps up, robs a home run, and falls head over heels overhead into the bullpen. He comes up with the ball saying, "I caught the ball," and it was a spectacular catch. It was, the best catch of the year. It was one of the best catches of the decade. However, why I consider it the best of, though, is not just that, but the fact that it brought up this debate as to whether or not that should be considered a catch. And I've always been of the mindset that you need to stay in the field of play in order for a catch to count. And granted, the rules currently say that you do not have to. See Derek Jeter as well. I just feel like that you have to stay within the bounds of the field of play for a catch to be considered a legal catch. Because how far I get that. You can jump from in the field of play. Like, that's the least of what you have to do. You can't, jump over the fence and then take 2 steps and then jump and catch the ball. But at least it got this discussion going as to whether or not that should be considered a catch. It was spectacular nonetheless, but it should not have been a catch.
See, I'm the total devil's advocate this, because I think it's almost like the NFL, the process of the catch. And so I think if he starts the catch in the field of play, everything's good after that.
I get it.
I'm kind of with Levi on that one. Yeah, I valid arguments on both sides.
But I agree. I'm not letting people jump into the stands and then get something. Because some of those Rizzo tarp calls are kind of close like that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Where he's tiptoeing across the tarp trying to catch it. And it's granted the tarp's in play still, so it's on the field of play. So, but
there's no angle of the camera to tell you if it was actually a catch. He can fall behind the fence, or you can fall into the stands, and there's no way a camera can show you an angle that for sure that he secured it the whole time.
I guess we're going to have to put a magnet in the ball and sensors in the gloves.
Yeah, a lot of shady shit can happen once you fall over those fences. He might have just had a ball in his pocket. He was waiting to pull that out the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't really think that. But no, it was spectacular nonetheless. Whether you consider it a catch or not a catch, it was a lot of fun to watch, and good on Austin Jackson for putting his body in harm's way.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff. Levi, go ahead, man. What's on your mind?
Well, one of the things I was going to mention was I guess I'll start. He did baseball. I'll go to music. One of my top 5 things of the year was Margot Price's record called All American Made, and I'm not sure if either one of you guys have heard it.
I've heard of, I haven't heard it yet though.
It's excellent. It's like, just great kind of, I don't know how to explain it, like Americana-ish, country-ish, and the Margot's got great vocals.
Yeah.
I highly recommend it. Yeah.
Cool. She's from okay. It says origin Nashville, but she was born in Aledo, Illinois, which is kind of over by the Quad Cities area.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I've got it on my my queue, like the to listen to. So thanks for the you reminded me to move it up the queue. So
it's excellent, man. It's a good record. You guys will dig it.
Yeah, who would you say like her influences are, you think?
Maybe like, I don't know, kind of the older 70s singer.
Like Emmylou Harris, maybe? Or?
Well, a little bit maybe, but like you get also her voice has some of that like 60s country, like Tammy Wynette-ish qualities to it and stuff like that. Like her voice has a bit of a throwback quality to it.
Cool.
She's going to be at Knuckleheads here in Kansas City in January.
Oh, I see as well that she's on Third Man, Jack White's label as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can still find them, but you might be able to. Most Barnes and Nobles, I think, have them probably still, but her record at Barnes and Noble, I think, is autographed.
Oh, cool.
If you purchase it at Barnes and Noble.
Right.
I think the inner sleeve comes autographed. It's not the actual outside. But yeah, that's a pro tip for all the vinyl hunters out there.
That's cool. No, thanks for the recommendation. I'm gonna, I should say, reinforcing my interest in her.
We'll also put together a mixtape on YouTube of our favorite tracks from 2017. So we'll be sure to include that.
Nice.
Well, I'll go with Levi. I'll go next here. My favorite record of the year, and I'll preface this with, there's kind of a difference between favorite and best sometimes, right? I mean, meaning, the album that I listen to the most may not necessarily be the best record musically of the year, but it's the one that, really touched me the most. It's kind of like one of those things, like when people ask me like what my favorite movie is, I'll tell them Gremlins. When people ask me what I think the best movie ever made is, I'll say Goodfellas, it's kind of like that. So for this one, and I say that because I don't want to devalue the quality of this record, because it's great. It's my favorite record of the year. It's by an all-female quartet called Chastity Belt. And, I even feel saying, all-female quartet because, I think hopefully we'll reach a point someday where we're just like, it's a band, it's not a band of girls, I only mentioned it because of, Levi pointing out, a strong female singer-songwriter. But I think it's important because, it's for girls that are fairly young. They all went to college together in Walla Walla, Washington, and they're from Pacific Northwest area. And, there could be even a little bit of the early 90s Seattle Pacific sound in their music. Not necessarily, I wouldn't put it like necessarily like they sound like Soundgarden or anything like that. But there's a trace of it. But it's certainly much more jangly than anything to come out of early 90s Seattle. It's jangly. It's kind of poppy, but it's also kind of dark as well. Lyrically, it's pretty straightforward. Like some of the songs are just kind of about getting your shit together and like kind of finding your head when you're in the middle of after like when you woke up at 5 a.m. like really hungover. There's really straightforward lyrics at sometimes, and other times it's a little bit darker and a little more moving. Um, it's Chastity Belt, and the album's called "I Used to Spend So Much Time Alone." I think the lyrics are really witty at times too, and pretty clever. Um, and yeah, this one really, God, it really grew on me. I liked it right away when I heard it. I think the opening track, "Different Now," is certainly one of the better opening tracks I've heard in a long time. But as the year went on, because this came out, I think, fairly early in the year in 2017, I just started listening to it more and more. And even albums that maybe might be a little bit more richer musically and might have a little more texture to them, I didn't listen to them as much as I listened to this one. I mean, I listened to the album probably once or twice a week. I really like it that much. So looking forward. I hope I get to see them live sometime. They're obviously when they tour, they're playing really small venues still, and this album got some critical buzz, but they haven't really quote unquote like, I don't know, broken through commercially yet. Cool. But yeah, so I really dig it. So right that's my favorite record of the year is Chastity Belt. So
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I know what you mean by the your favorite record versus probably like the best record or the most well executed record, because this year had a couple of my favorite bands release new records, and The War on Drugs and The National. And those I've been listening to quite a bit over the last few weeks. However, admittedly, they don't like latch onto you as quickly. You really have to kind of like sit down and listen to them to really enjoy them. And so, road tripping, I've for the holidays, I've been able to do that and focus a bit more on those records than I was able to when they first came out, and just like play them while I'm coding or something like that. And you can enjoy it, but you don't like fully get to immerse yourself in it, especially in stuff that's a bit more darkly subtle, like The War on Drugs and The National are. Records are. And so to that end, though, to what you're saying, Gabe, the record I found myself going back to, like I listened to it early on in the year and just kind of was like, oh yeah, that wasn't bad. And then I was flipping through my iTunes queue and I was like, oh yeah, that record, I'll listen to that again. And the next thing you know, you're listening to it, once a day or once a week at least. And for me, that was Dave Depper's Emotional Freedom Technique.
Yeah, I like that one too.
Which is Dave Depper's up to now has just been kind of a sideman and like Death Cab for Cutie and Ray LaMontagne and a couple other bands, and he released he redid Paul McCartney's Ram and released that a few years ago, and then to write this new record, Emotional Freedom Technique, he actually did it during sound checks. And Levi, you can probably appreciate this, where you can speak to this, where a musician just kind of has to be around. They don't have to do much for sound checks and leading up to a gig. And if you're opening, or if you're, just a sideman and just a sideman, that there's a lot of downtime, but you have to be there. And so he decided while he was there, he would just go ahead and start writing these songs. And that's what eventually became Emotional Freedom Technique. And it's just, it's kind of, four hipsters playing synth pop, and but it's a lot of fun, and I found myself going back to it, and it's it's a good dichotomy, both fast and slow, and he's got a unique voice, and it's kind of revelatory in a way, and so yeah, I just kept finding myself going back to Dave Depper.
Cool. Yeah, I like that. You recommended that one to me, and I that one was. I've got a big list, like in I Google Play Music is my streaming service of choice, and it's everything I've dug, I put on that list, and that's one of them certainly too.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I'm gonna for one of my top fives, I'm gonna venture outside of our normal realm for just a moment, but I'll bring it back to baseball and music. I promise, listeners.
No worries.
The Bears. drafted a quarterback this year, and he actually might not suck. And so I'm like rejoicing because I can't remember when the last time it's been. Mitch Trubisky.
Mitchell, his mother calls him.
Mitchell Trubisky, yeah. And, weren't sure at the beginning of the season if he was going to be starting or what, but it played out to where he did basically finish the season starting all the games. And it's definitely given me a glimmer of hope to actually want to, like, keep track of the Bears again next year. So
yeah, it's looking promising. He's got an air about him. He's got a leadership quality to him, and he's not afraid to do what it takes to get the job done. And it's just a matter of learning at this point.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been one of the brighter sports things this year.
Yeah.
For me at least.
I actually I dreamt his being drafted. So the story is that.
So in your dream, were you like, "Don't trade up,
Right. Yeah. Well, no. Yeah. It was kind of funny. Because in my dream, I think they got him a little bit lower. They didn't have to trade up to number 2 to get him. But my wife and I were in London at the time, and the draft, because of the time difference, was actually happening while we were sleeping overnight. And so I knew that when I woke up, the first round, it was just the first round of the draft would be completed. And so I could immediately see the whole first round of the draft happen, which is like Christmas morning for a football fan. And,
right.
And so I woke up. And it was 7 a.m. I was like, oh, this is kind of early, but I could see what happened if I wanted to. I could just I could look, 2 clicks on my phone. I could see who the Bears got. It's like, no, I'm going to go back to sleep. And in my dream, they took Mitchell Trubisky. However, admittedly, I think they ended up somehow they got a second first round picks. And they took him with the second first round pick and not the second overall pick. But maybe I was misinterpreting my dream, and I did actually dream that they got the second overall pick. And
who knows? 5 years from now, if the Bears are in the playoffs consistently or something, we could be like, oh, thank God they traded up. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutly, yeah.
But the knee-jerk reaction to it was like, man, they probably could have had him third. You know what I mean?
I just appreciate that the front office loves somebody so much that they had the balls to do that move that would be frowned upon by everybody else in the league, to move up one spot. They wanted him so bad, and that's all I want. I want a front office with conviction.
Well, and not only that, it shows how much faith they have in you as a player. You know what I mean? Can you imagine being
sure.
Mitch walking in the door like, damn, they traded up to get me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, wow. Who knows?
So yeah,
Jonathan, didn't you own a Cade McNown jersey at one time?
Oh yeah,
I did.
Yeah, Jim Miller.
Eric Kramer is my favorite all-time Chicago Bear quarterback. Eric Kramer.
I'll take Rick Meyer here. All right.
Yeah, right.
But anyway,
better than Grossman, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Didn't Grossman take him to a Super Bowl though?
Well, he didn't take him to a Super Bowl.
He didn't put him on his shoulders. He got lucky enough to be the quarterback for the Bears defense that took him to the Super Bowl.
Right.
The Bears defense was what got to the Super Bowl that year. Mitch just took a ride on the bus with them.
Rex, yeah.
Or Rex, yeah.
No, so yeah, Mitch seems like a guy that they could take him there. And not be a guy that they go of in spite of.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry to divert us.
No worries.
Talk, but yeah, that was a highlight for me this year for sure.
In the meantime, fire the coach.
Right. Fantastic, Mr. Fox.
Actually, can I go next, because his Fantastic Mr. Fox is actually apropos to what I'm going to discuss. This year I started listening to film scores a lot. It might be I'm out of the classroom now, so I'm more at a desk than I was. It's always looking for music that's good to concentrate to, that's good to concentrate on while I'm working. And so I started listening to film scores a little bit more. It kind of sometimes can make the day's work a little more interesting as well. You're feel like you're in a movie or something. And so I started then like, kind of like writing down, composers and things like that, and just kind of really keeping track of how they do it. And a guy that actually scored the fantastic Mr. Fox, and he also scored one of Wes Anderson's other movies, Grand Budapest Hotel, which I have to admit I haven't seen either of those.
They're good.
I'm sure they are. I like Wes Anderson, I just haven't gotten around to him. He's a French composer, conductor. His name is, I hope I say it right, Alexandre Desplat is his name. I hope I said Desplat right. Yeah, good looking guy as well. He's I don't know much about him other than a couple interviews I read before this podcast. He is the thing about these conductors is they're really prolific. I mean, the guy's done, I would say, like over the last 10 years, like he's probably done like 15 movies, maybe more even. And the most recent one that he scored was a movie that came out a few weeks ago called The Shape of Water, the new Guillermo del Toro movie, kind of a love story creature movie. And even though I haven't seen the movie, the music is so good and tells the story so well without any lyrics that I feel like I've seen the movie.
Wow.
So cool. I'd like to say that's a big compliment I can pay
Sure.
someone. And even some of the movies that he's done, like he's done a few of the Harry Potters even. And he can do like a really big score, he can do, what's required of a big blockbuster movie, but he can also do something that's really jazzy. He also did the movie, came out, it's George Clooney did it. Matt Damon and Julianne Moore in it. I think it sort of flopped and got kind of mixed reviews. A movie called Suburbicon he did this year did this year as well. And he did a really good score, a movie I haven't seen. The thing is, I haven't seen a lot of the movies that he scored. The movie with Benedict Cumberbatch called The Imitation Game. The score for that is great. Really, really good. So he can do a jazzy kind of score as well. And I just think that's such a talent to evoke a mood, with just sort of looking at a clip or getting the word from what the director wants, and really crafting a piece of music around it. It's an art form that and a genre of music that I just really appreciated a lot more than I used to. I just think like, there's, I think the movie score is, it's another character in the movie. And this guy, this Alexander Desplat, I haven't heard anything of his that I don't like. I highly recommend The Shape of Water score. It's gorgeous. So
that's what Robbie Robertson got into once the band broke up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Movie scores.
It's interesting too that because Betsy listens to a lot of the Wes Anderson scores, and but he has shown range in that he can put together an awesome compilation of pop songs like Rushmore or the Royal Tenenbaums, and then turn around and just have like a score-driven film like Grand Budapest or.
And Alexander Desplat got the Oscar for Grand Budapest. He won best. Cool. He won best score. Yeah, cool. He's a perennial nominee. He's 8-time Academy Award nominee. Wow. So yeah, and he really, I don't think he's been in the game terribly long. Like like early aughts, he kind of started out just working on French movies, and then I think the Harry Potter thing came, and that So cool. really prolific. Yeah, really good stuff.
Yeah, looking forward to spinning some while I work tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Okay, well I'll go next. I'll switch over to baseball, and so my number 3 overall was the Astros getting off the schneid to break another streak, winning the World Series, first time in their 47 seasons. Or this was their 48th season that they won the World Series. And what I especially liked about it was that we now have 3 consecutive years of teams getting off the schneid. So 2015, the Royals ended a drought of 29 seasons.
Yeah.
The Cubs, obviously, last year, 107 seasons without a World Series. It was in their 108th that they won. Right, Levi? That math is right.
Yep. Yeah.
And then, so the Astros in 47 seasons. So I did the math, ending the last 3 World Series champions have ended 183 seasons of combined futility just over the last 3 Major League Baseball seasons.
So over a century. Yeah,
yes,
right.
Nearly 2
Almost
centuries
2 centuries.
worth
Nearly
of
2 centuries, right.
combined futility for these fan bases in Kansas City and Chicago and Houston. And that's kind of cool to see that. It's not just the Giants winning every other year or the Yankees winning for the 4th time in 6 years or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah.
One of the things I was going to mention probably is my record of the year. My favorite record of the year. And, I might even say I think it's the best record of the year because the production, and I talked about it when it came out, and I know you guys know what I'm going to say. But for those out there that don't know, the production on this record is stellar. The tones of all the instruments are fantastic. The songwriting is fantastic. It's Marty Stewart's songs way out west. And
his superlatives, because he has a fantastic band.
Fabulous.
I mean, they really are superlative, I mean, it's an apt name.
Jonathan's got it back on the windowsill behind him. And I just think it's one of the best records I've heard in a long time. It's just, you don't always get to combine the quality of the musicians, the songs, the artistry, the musicianship, the production. Just, it's like the complete package to me. And one of the cool things about it, the Mike Campbell link where he produced it. And so I'm hoping, that this record, either Marty gets some nods or Mike Campbell gets some production nods, because the record is just excellent, man. I still listen to it like once a week.
It's got a very I hear like a big Graham Parsons Burrito Brothers influence on it.
Sure.
But it's also
it's got like the older Bakersfield sound.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's got a very desert.
Yeah,
like
the desert. Yeah, the desert vibe is there. It's like they combined it all. The best of the Byrds, Bakersfield, Buck Owens, and I mean, he's playing Clarence White's guitar.
Yeah,
Clarence White was the guitarist for the Byrds, and him and Gene Parsons, no relation to Graham, they created this thing called the B-bender, basically, to where it attaches to where your strap of your guitar goes, and you can pull on it, and it bends the string, and it makes it sound like a steel guitar. It's like the whole back of the guitar is like routed out, and it's mechanical, and you can see the metal rods, and you bend down, you pull down on the neck, and it bends it to where it's like a steel guitar.
Yeah.
And so just, he's got the whole vibe of that going with it too. It's like, how could the record not be good? But beyond that, like I said, just all the songs, the first time you hear them, they sound like you've heard them before. They all sound familiar almost, but not in a bad way. Not in a like, oh, I've already heard this, but like in a comforting, like, this is this, like, he's channeling the sound of like some decades into like one album.
Yeah, it is a comforting record. It's peyote hillbilly, is how I would describe it.
Yeah, man, it's
it's one of my favorites of the year too.
Yeah, we can talk about it. So there you go.
That guy's he's just getting better with age. I mean, I always appreciated his poppier stuff when he first his name first broke in the late 80s, early 90s. I can appreciate that as well, because I think those are great tunes.
Well, and what's funny,
over the last 10 years or so, he's really just found this groove that I'm excited what he's going to do next.
Yeah, he ended up playing with he played with Lester Flatt coming up. out of the bluegrass scene. And there's YouTube clips of Marty Stewart playing mandolin for Lester Flatt on, like, I don't know if it's Hee Haw or one of those. It's one of those shows, and he can't be more than 15 or 16 in it. And he's and that's kind of the scene Marty came up in, was that whole bluegrass touring backup musician thing.
Yeah.
And then it's cool how he played it into like 90s kind of popular country star, now into like, you know, kind of a grandfather of country music, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. You know, on January 18th, Marty Stewart's playing in Bakersfield at Buck Owens Crystal Palace Theater. I think we should go, guys. That'd be the place to go.
Yeah,
see
that'd
him.
be nice to see that record.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I think he's getting a lot of legs of tours in on this record, because he's already been to Kansas City, and I think he's coming back.
Yeah, I missed him in Chicago, unfortunately. I've seen him before. I've seen him a couple times, but I really want to see him on this tour.
Yeah. So there you go.
Nice. Yeah, that's a great record.
Yeah.
Gabe, you up?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll keep it brief. For baseball, you know, obviously when your team's in the gutter most of the year, you know, it's.
Hey, you were in first place in April for like 2 weeks, right?
We were in first place for 2 weeks, yeah. So, but still, most of the year, you know, obviously things are. I think the future's bright for my team, but it's going to take a couple of years still. That said, I was glad to see, even though the White Sox are the only team I root for, I'm glad to see a couple teams have some success this year, like that have been kind of down for a little while. Like the Twins are back. You know, the Twins made the playoffs. Granted, they didn't get very far, but they still made it very unexpectedly, in my opinion. You know, they lost like over 100 games the year before. And then the Brewers, you know, look like they're kind of turning things around as well. And then in Colorado, you know, the Rockies could really be building something. So I think it's good to see those franchises, particularly, you know, the Brewers and the Twins being here in the Midwest.
It's good to see smaller markets.
Absolutely.
Have talented teams.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because sometimes, you know, with the way the system's kind of set up, you know, a lot of times it doesn't happen to where the smaller, you know, I mean, the smaller teams always, I guess, technically get better draft picks or whatever is the way it's supposed to be, but it doesn't always play out to where that happens.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a really cool thing, and I hope it's a trend that continues next season.
There's been I'll say this in baseball, you know, with Kansas City winning, obviously the Cubs, but the Cubs, you know, are a big market team and have a lot of money. There's been some decent parity in baseball, you know, over the last few years, you know. So we'll see. I'm with Levi. I hope I want to see every team have a chance. Maybe it's just egalitarian in me. I want to see everybody competitive, you know. So yeah.
Well, it keeps everything more competitive that way.
Yeah,
the games are funner to watch. What were you going to say, Jonathan?
Well, I know that America is hoping for the I-94 World Series that would pit the Brewers against the Twins.
Right, yeah.
That would be
America's begging for it, right?
Yeah, you know, we could actually like try to go to those games. Back and forth. Totally. Yeah, that would be fun. The Paul Molitor Alumni World Series.
Yeah, right. No kidding. Huh. Cool.
Yeah, might happen here in a couple years.
Never know.
Yep.
So, Jonathan, do you have one more?
Yeah, so we got a couple more here. One of my best of was my favorite concert of the year. Went over to the pageant in St. Louis, and I'd never been to the pageant before. I've been to several shows, like dozens of shows in St. Louis, but I've never been to the pageant, and which was a cool place. I think it was recently redone, and it was very nice and clean and well air conditioned. I was almost cold there.
That place has great ventilation for sure.
Seriously. So I guess it just wasn't that night, but so I got to see the Broken Social Scene for the first time. Not the Broken Social Scene, but Broken Social Scene for the first time. One of my favorite bands of the last 10 years or so, And so yeah, we were right up front there, and it also had one of my favorite moments at a concert, which was the lead singer singing one of their not so hit songs called Texaco Bitches, and which the refrain is a woo. It's the band runs much deeper than that if you've never heard them, but than those lyrics. But so he comes out and he's singing, and shaking hands with people right there in the front. He's actually Kevin Drew, the lead singer. He's in the crowd, shaking hands and with the microphone and singing along in the middle of the song. And when it would come up to the woo, he would put the microphone in the face of whoever he was looking at, and they would give out the woo. And he comes over to me and he shakes my hand. And Betsy never listens to Broken Social Scene, and but so she's maybe heard him on the periphery. And he sticks a microphone in her face, and she goes woo, with a question mark at the end.
At the end, she's like woo.
Spotlight on
you're lying. She busted out the scream and won't get fooled again. She's like, yeah!
That would have been awesome. So it was a fun time, and he knew that he got her off guard, but it was great to see him. Sound was great. It was great energy that night, and it was St. Louis this year it's been a contentious city over the last couple of years, and the band acknowledged they weren't sure if people were going to come out, but they were definitely very aware of the situation, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Cool.
Nice. Yeah. Well, my baseball thing this year that I thought was fun was May 7th, continuing into the 8th. And what I'm referring to is Cubs-Yankees Interleague. And on May 7th, the game started.
Right.
The game didn't get finished till May 8th. The Cubs did end up losing 5-4 in 18 innings. It was the longest intra-league game of all time.
It's a lot of bonus baseball.
I remember watching it and thinking, God, is this thing ever gonna end? And while it was a heartbreaker, the baseball lover in me could not get enough.
Yeah.
18 innings of baseball bliss. It was over 5 hours. I can't remember. I don't remember the total time length, but yeah.
6 hours, 5 minutes.
6 hours. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like I got a 2-for-1 that day on my baseball intake.
I'm just like to see 20. The Cubs struck out 26 times. The Yankees struck out 22 times. Chase Headley struck out 4 times. Let's see who pulled. Didi Gregorius pulled an 0 for 8. That hurts the average.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Didi.
Yeah. Otherwise, notable 0-fers. Addison Russell went 0 for 6. Wilson Contreras went 1 for 8.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a marathon. I'm always down for marathon games.
And you lost.
Yeah, even though we lost, I just love the fact that there was a game that got played for 6 hours.
Nice. Yeah, no, I mean it's I'm with you. I it's a lot of people complain about baseball being too long. I'll gladly watch a 17-inning game.
Extra innings is one thing. An 18-inning game, 6 hours. That's like two. Yeah, so that's 2 9-inning games, 3 hours apiece.
Yep.
Yeah, it was buy one get one on baseball that day.
Yep. Won't complain about that.
So Gabe, you got 1 more, 2 more? I can't remember. 2 more.
Well, I think I have 2 more. I think. I'll go ahead then and mention another. I'm just going to go ahead and just go with another record I liked. There is a band that I think more people should pay attention to. They get labeled kind of the stoner metal genre. They get labeled. They get placed into that genre, I should say. I think that does them a little bit of a disservice because I think they're growing so much that they're just a great band. They put out an EP at the beginning of the year in 2017. I've talked about it on this show before, so won't come as a surprise. The EP is called Intentions, and that's IN and then the word tensions. So clever title, in my opinion, as well. And the band's name is Lopan, which I like them even more because they're named after a character in Big Trouble in Little China, one of the greatest films ever made. Yeah, they are from Ohio. I think they're from Columbus, I believe. And the EP is really great. It's like, I think it's 5 tunes. It's the best production value they've had of any. They have 3 LPs and 1 EP. All of which have come out within probably about the last 6 or 7 years. And, they just keep growing, and it's such a good sound. It's obviously it deals with some familiar themes with, sort of heavier music, like, some of it's kind of, about warriors, and it's got like sort of this medieval kind of, elements of Dungeons and Dragons and things like that. But at the same time, it's also, I think it stands on its own as well. So it's more than just a stoner metal metal album, especially the first song called I think it's called Go West, I believe. And it's great. A really, really, really awesome EP. So check it out.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah. Great voice too on the lead singer. Just I think that's another thing that separates him from some of their contemporaries in that genre is just he at times he has like a beautiful voice. Even though the music still remains heavy, it's good stuff.
Nice. All right, well, I got my last one here, so I'll start off the last round. It was a personal achievement of mine, and that was I got my setlist.fm database updated, and I had really been slacking on that. I mean, I would keep it updated. So for those not familiar, Setlist.fm is a website that contains rock set lists from bands across the world, and a very recent set lists and set lists going back as far as you can imagine rock set lists going. Some are complete, some are not. Some are accurate, some might have little inaccuracies, and so it's a great database to go look up shows and then keep track of your own shows. If you create an account, you can keep track of the shows that you've been to and see statistics about the shows you've been to, which I love. I love seeing statistics behind like all the Pearl Jam shows that I've been to, or all the Widespread Panic shows that I've been to, or
get your Pearl Jam show pie chart. Yeah,
exactly, right. Man. I love that. But it's hard to stay on top of it, and there was a lot of stuff from college that just never got entered, and so I dug up all the tickets, and one night it was one Friday night, Betsy went out to go out on the town, and I stayed home, and all I did was update my Setlist FM database for like That's 4 awesome. Hours, and I think I added like 150 shows, and so I'm up to like
That's awesome. I'm not all the tickets for those, man?
No, well, Betsy was better at keeping tickets than me, and then some of the stuff.
But at least you have her tickets to go off of. Like, I was at that show too. Yeah.
Right, but there are some shows that still like Gabe. I think we like saw like, I don't know, some offshoot of the Jerry Garcia band in Bloomington or Champaign, Urbana. We saw them in Urbana or something, and it's like I'll never be able to
Melvin
track that
Seals
one down.
band.
Yeah, like Melvin Seals. So yeah, it was. It felt good and to stay on top of it for the foreseeable future. And but yeah. So.
This is like a total offshoot question. What was the theater in Peoria? Was it called the Madison? Didn't we see some shows there at one time?
Yes, we did. We did. I saw Widespread at the Madison.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the hottest show I've ever been to.
Yeah, that was like 110 degrees or something.
Yes.
It was heavy.
Yeah. So yeah, I suggest anybody who's familiar go check it out. It's worth it.
Yeah, setlist.fm. Well, right on. My last one isn't anything that groundbreaking, but to me it was awesome. I finally got a Yield on vinyl from Pearl Jam. And I had been waiting a long time, and I had an original copy, I don't know, probably 10 years ago now. And I sold it because it was worth like $350 or something I got for it, or something stupid. And I had kicked myself like ever since then. And they reissued it at the end of last year. It was like in September or October of 2016, but I actually didn't get a copy of it till earlier this year. And it's just my favorite Pearl Jam record, and so to finally have it again on vinyl really meant something to me. And yeah, I got it next to me. I was listening to it the other day.
Nice. Yeah.
They for all the PJ heads out there, the Avocado is on vinyl now too as well.
Is the Yield, is that a gatefold, or is it just a sleeve?
Yeah, it's the exact gatefold with the cutout of the Yield symbol like the original one. And it even has the Yield Pearl Jam sticker on the inside like the original did.
Oh, nice. Yeah, they're. I figure Pearl Jam probably treat people right on, packaging, I would guess.
Yeah, honestly.
I have this one, but it's not a gatefold. It's just...
Oh, is mine like that? I can't remember.
Yeah, it's just that.
No, it's not a gatefold, it looks like. Yeah, you're right. It's just a cutout jacket.
Yeah. I always felt like they could... Yeah, Gabe, you're right. They do usually do like a big production with the vinyl, but I think this and 10 are the only ones that aren't gatefold.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine says newly remastered, out of print since '98. Featuring original artwork, including die-cut cover and Yield sticker.
And you got the sticker, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so there you go.
Can't go wrong with that.
Like I said, it was cool that now later it was, I don't know, probably, I can't remember, it was around summer or fall, Avocado came out on vinyl finally, and it had never been on vinyl, I don't think, till originally even, so...
Cool.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nice. Good stuff. My last one, I think I'm the last. Am I the last one here? Okay. This might sound kind of, one thing I vow to do before the end of the year is I want to give a little bit of money. And I want to remind everybody, you can always give money to Rock and Roll Shin-Soo. There's information to do that on our website. For the folks out there who have websites that provide that I really value, for music, two of the sites that I really love are archive.org, which I mainly go there for the live music, but also they're really, if you just read up about them, they're really kind of trying to just archive everything, government documents, kind of, I think, helping foster that culture of transparency.
And that was archive.org, you said?
Yeah, archive.org, yeah. They're right now raising money. Their goal is 1.5 million. Right now they're at like 1.2. They're only asking everybody to chip in like $5 a piece. Obviously you can give much more if you'd like. But if everybody did that, it would help. Would go to back in the day. That's now, housed on archive.org. So I really, really, even though I don't listen to all of the bands on E-Tree, it's got a lot of good live shows there, as well as, all of these good,
like every Grateful Dead show's on there.
Yeah, right. And also just on archive.org, even some of the even some of the non-music stuff on there, I think it's really important to preserve it. Right. And they're doing that. And then also the other one is a live music site that I go to a lot. It's called panicstream.net. And, I guess its core function is it's a widespread panic streaming site. And I don't really use it for that necessarily, as much as I do dig widespread. I mean, more so in a past tense, but still Still appreciate them. But if you go to panicstream.net/vault, they've put up just a really vast assortment of live concerts from everybody from David Bowie to Tool to the Stones. It's just there's just a ton of bands on there. Some of are old FM recordings, old bootlegs, but it's all streaming, or you can download it. So I figured I would kick them a few bucks as well, just because I appreciate their time that they put into it. So
those websites are awesome, but to me they're like the biggest rabbit holes. I get stuck in them and just like start listening to stuff, and then it's like, how did I get into the fall 2002 Natalie Imbruglia tour run? It's like,
right.
It's like, how am I? How did I end up here?
Yeah. Well, listen, that can happen, certainly. I agree. I've been down that rabbit hole before too. But yeah, I'm gonna try to just before the end of the year kick them a few bucks, and I think everybody out there that should too. I mean, a few years ago I started like trying to give a little bit of money to Wikipedia just because I valued what they do. So I kind of apply that principle here as well. So I'm gonna do that in 2017 because I've never given those two sites before, Archive or Panic Stream, and I'm gonna do that this year.
Cool.
So.
Good idea.
That's my final takeaway from 2017.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, it hasn't been such a shitty year in some ways.
What's that?
It hasn't been such a shitty year in some ways.
No, we just talked about the good stuff for an hour plus.
Yeah.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Oh, there
you cut out for a second.
Yeah, cut out. I had some tech. It's been a little spotty over the last few minutes.
Yeah, speaking of gremlins, I think they're coming hot and heavy now, so we better wrap it up here.
All right. I want to remind everybody, visit Thanks for listening. Hope everybody had a good 2017. If you didn't, I hope your 2018 is a bit brighter. I want to go ahead and remind everybody to visit rockchew.com. Also, you can find all of our episodes at rockchew.com. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at rockinchew. That's rock as in, what'd you say, Levi? Natalie?
Nina Simone.
Nina Simone. There we go. Yeah. There we go. So follow us on Twitter and Instagram at rockinchew. You can also like us on Facebook. If you're in the donating mood before the end of the year, why not donate to us as well? Help us keep the podcast going. Support all the hard work that Jonathan does on the technical end as well. And thanks for listening. We'll see everybody in 2018. Have a safe and healthy and happy new year.
Peace.